Hi, and welcome to the session of AI strategy. Today we're going to cover 7 simple steps to start with AI and how you can implement an AI strategy. Hi, I'm Sherin Mathews, CEO and founder of AI Tech North and Innovation Exchange. So let me give you a bit of background about myself. So I started my AI journey 2 decades ago, where I built my first robot, and it was quite impressive in terms of what it did with limited technology that was available at that time. AI is not a new concept, and with the recent evolution of cloud and cloud-based technology and digital transformation, AI has become part of our day-to-day life. I started this community 3 years ago, and I've been completely passionate about in terms of evangelizing and democratizing the capability of AI to the wider world. And I think one key message that I want to share with everyone is AI is for everyone. AI obviously impacts various sectors, various industries, and across different disciplines. We have seen AI is not a new concept. It's been there for decades. In 1956, AI was termed as artificial intelligence as a term by Professor Scientist John McCarthy. Then over decades, due to machine learning and high performance technologies like supercomputers, we were able to create machine learning capabilities. And we have seen some of these examples where Russian chess master Garry Kasparov was defeated by IBM Deep Blue computer, which played chess using machine learning. Now, we are seeing that businesses are slowly adopting AI and advanced capabilities in AI. We saw that industry had the access to tap into this new technologies such as deep learning. And we see there was a gold rush, an AI gold rush pretty much over the recent decades. And why is this all possible? It's because there has been a paradigm shift in how businesses are using AI. Businesses are working with data and digital content at this minute, and there is abundance of information. And there is a trend that CEO or your business leaders and management suite, they're keen to understand what information you can extract from your data. And once you have this information, what intelligence and insights and predictive steps that you can take forward to take decisions and bring revenue or bring operational efficiency or improved engagement going forward. So we see that data brings information, and tons of information and patterns of business behavior brings intelligence. Now, most important thing here is there is a bit of a misconception around how AI is used. So let's try to work through that. So the first misconception is we think AI is everything. It could do all sorts of amazing stuff, but we got to realize AI today that we work with is called narrow AI. It's only able to do simple tasks, simple input, simple output. You give voice, it's able to translate that into text. You give an image, it's able to identify what object it is. It's not able to do super advanced or general intelligence level stuff at this minute, but hopefully in a few years down the line, we should be able to see that. Other thing is, we think AI is very predictive. It can predict the future. I think we got to realize AI that we have today, the narrow AI to be more precise, is only able to predict what it has been fed. What it means is it relies on data, the data that you have provided, the conditions and patterns and behavior that you have in your data, which means AI is actually reacting to the situations and the outcomes that's already happened. So you got to realize if your expected outcome is not in your data, you probably won't see that result. So we can't expect AI to do something unique and different if it's not been trained on that particular situation or scenario. So it's not predictive 100%. It is reacting to what information and data you have provided. Last but not least, AI needs to be defined with some purpose. It needs to have a commercial value behind it or some purpose where it's actually solving a problem which is unaddressed or unexplored, or in this case, augmenting or creating new opportunities, optimizing an operation or transforming a system or enhancing an engagement, it needs to add value. If AI is not adding value, there's no point going to the entire painful journey to create something cool and fancy. That's what it will be in the end. Now, before we jump into, how do we actually implement AI, it's really important to understand what are the barriers that we will be working with. So let's try to look into the 7 barriers that I have shortlisted that will help you. So if you understand this barrier, it really helps you with your AI adoption. Knowing barriers is equally important as knowing and having a strategy, because you need to overcome these barriers. So first and foremost, as I discussed, it is the data. Having good data, quality data, and clean data, and governance process around it. Data actually reflects what sort of bias, what sort of quality, what sort of operations and process you have within your organization. So if you're expecting, amazing results from your AI, you probably need to have amazing data, which means garbage in, garbage out. If you have bias in your data, you will actually get bias out. So you really have got to have really good data governance and quality data to start your AI journey. The next most important thing is skills. You got to have the right skills within your organization. You got to have an architect, you got to have an AI designer, and obviously a data scientist team to make this really happen in your business. And someone who really gets a full, thorough understanding of end-to-end value chain of AI. You need someone to strategize it and also implement it. So good to have a strategist, designer, and an implementation team going forward. Talking about team, we got to talk about the technology as well. So you got to bring the right available knowledge, platform, try to adapt with the framework and technology that you already have and leverage your data and existing infrastructure and landscape. Next one is you got to have executive support. You got to have leadership support. You got to have leadership strategy in place. Otherwise, AI just becomes a technical project without a cultural impact. It probably is not going to sail or take off for a long-term process or basis. So this leads into the final and most important step, which is having the culture ready to sort of work on your AI strategy. One thing I often say, technology is the easy part. Culture is the most challenging aspect. So treat AI as a business change. Work in ethical manner. Treat this as a business change and work with your people. Because sometimes it's important to take a top-down approach where leadership is able to drive new innovation. At the same time, you've got to take a bottom-up approach where you work with the technology that you have, the people that you have, the skills that you already have, and see how AI sits quite nicely with everything. This leads into a really critical point, and that is executive thinking. Executive thinking is what makes it happen. Executive thinking is thinking long-term, thinking 5-10 years down the line. How are you going to apply AI today so that your organization benefits on a long-term basis and you have a long-term success for your business? This is where you need to get strategic. Now, when I talk about strategy, this slide really explains quite nicely what it really means. Someone might say, hey, we need AI, but you might be so focused on your current problems that you really don't see the benefit, the long-term benefits of having AI and a strategy and a team and capability in place. So important to have a very long-term view when you're working with AI. And obviously, start simple. And this is where we get to our core part, where we got to understand intelligence. Intelligence is the new trend. Intelligence is the new fashion. And we have abundance of information. So intelligence truly is the ability to apply information positively. So how can we use everything, all the resources that we have today? And the resources, what I mean by that is our data, people, process, technology, and the whole infrastructure. So let's start to sort of simplify AI. So to simplify AI, I think the first and most important step is to start strategically with a problem. If you don't have a problem, you probably don't even need to innovate or have an AI solution in place. So you got to think about the problem first and how you're going to solve this problem. And is this problem strategic? Have you prioritized it? Have you seen how much value your business or your application can bring to the wider audience? This leads into the next step, which is to innovate. When I say innovate, I mean identifying what approach, what technology, what machine learning model you will use in this case. Now, innovation could be done in many ways. It could be enhancing the engagement with your customers, users. In this case, you probably need to bring a chatbot capability. You may be wondering, can I optimize my current operations and process? In this case, you could bring machine learning capability to identify where can I make some changes to predict more outcomes. How can I optimize my supply chain, for example? There might be a case where there is problem with the supply chain. Can I predict where am I getting this anomaly or leakage in terms of processes not being able to fulfill or leakage out of my funnel? So in this case, you're using anomaly detection process. So this gives you a really good idea of what flavor of AI you should use and how you should innovate. The next step is called empathy. Empathy is really important because empathy ensures that you're putting people first. You're putting ethics first. You're putting, people's and stakeholders' business requirement together to design a nice plan and a strategy and a solution that is beneficial not just for your business, but also for other key users. Now, once you have empathized or adopted ethical practices, the next step is to ensure you actually put a blueprint plan in place. So planning really helps in terms of bringing the right resources, right technology, bringing right leadership, designers, architects, and obviously planning through the implementation and experimentation phase of your AI. Leading to the next step is E for experiment. Experimentation is equally important as much as having all these strategies and principles in place. Experimentation is pretty much starting small, trying out if there is a value in your data, trying out if this is the right approach for you, and ultimately testing out if AI is the right fit for you. And when you experiment, you're taking less risk and you're getting maximum reward from it. You're not launching AI-enabled, untested, unethical, or black box AI out to the people. You're really seeing the value of what it could do for you and for the wider audience. Now, experimentation leads into the next step, which is once you know your experiment has worked, you've got to be agile and adapt a solid framework or solid platform, and be agile in terms of constantly experimenting and taking it to the next step and operationalizing it. It's I would say, a cyclical process of constantly evolving, adapting, and growing in terms of your AI maturity and capability. This leads into the last step, which is constantly improve. Never be happy with your result. Never settle down for 80% accuracy. I'm sure you can get to 90 or even 99 if you can. See if you can be more ethical, transparent, and open about what you're doing. And AI is rapidly changing technology. Every day there's something new coming out there. So maybe this is an opportunity to ensure that you are aligned to the latest cutting edge AI and try everything in a simple, small fashion, right? Again, this whole thing continues. So you refine what you have done, okay? You start with a problem, you experiment, you adapt, and you improve. And again, you go back to the drawing board. You ensure that you're still ethical and you align to the business requirement and to the stakeholder and to people as well. So once you do this, I think this is the simplest way you can get started from a process perspective with AI, okay? Now, one thing that we have to realize is there's tremendous power in terms of the community value that we have. And I believe strongly about it because we have created an AI community over the last 3 years where we have 10,000 attendees who have exchanged ideas and learned tricks of the trade and strategies and lessons and failures from everyone. And this is important. Be involved in a community fashion because this is a new technology. And as a community, we need to come together and share awareness. So awareness really helps to sort of minimize that waste, share the lesson learned, and reduce failures, and ultimately accelerate your journey to AI. Next thing is be aware of the ecosystem that we have. Ecosystem is knowing who's the right partner, who's the right designer, what is the right framework, what works, what's the best thing to do when it comes to starting with an AI in a simple way, what is the simple solution that I can just take off the shelf for, like cognitive services, which many service providers have. So really, having that ecosystem really helps you to get started in a short, simple fashion. Last but not least, stay connected with everyone to exchange knowledge. And that's one of our mission statement with Innovation Exchange, which is to help you guys to bring this knowledge all to you. So on that note, I will say thank you so much for your patience and hope this session was very helpful. You have my details over here. And if you need to know more, please get in touch with us or follow us on Innovation Exchange. Thank you.